So I just wanted to go over this flip chart that I cleaned up a little bit. Here is doing X, the behavior you would like to do, but something stops you, and not doing X. Down here, you put the criteria that you elicit on step 2A. Over here are where you put the criteria that you elicit on step 2B. So this is what's important about not doing X here, what's important about doing X here. And then up here is the highly valued criterion from step 3. And then when it's time to change things, we show how doing X fits this criteria, these criteria, and these criteria, and how not doing X fits, not doing X violates these criteria and those criteria. So that's all. So go ahead and find your seat. So we'll continue. And very soon we're going to have the opportunity to take more of a break if you want. I realize we had an extremely short break. We'll have an opportunity to take more very soon. Okay, so first, how many of you work in the context of personal change in some way, either professionally as a consultant, or you have people who come to you? Okay, yes, okay. And so in this context of personal change, who gets to make the first move? Who gets to make the first move to set the direction for your interaction? So do you set the direction, or does your client set the direction? Who gets to make the first move? You do. Great. And how do you do so?
I don't know, I just do it.
You just okay. Unconscious competence. So if you think about a client session that you have had, in what way do you make the first move to set the direction of the work that you're going to do together? Yes?
Well, I mean, they set the direction, but the first move I make is to establish a relationship of trust, and then it goes from there.
Okay, so you establish the relationship of trust, and that I would call that a precursor to doing the work. So that definitely the trust thing comes first. Then when you're ready to move forward, in what way do you set that direction in which you're moving? They're going to supply the content for what they want to work with, right? But how do you set the direction for your work? Ask for an outcome. So, or however you do it, you get to ask a question. What do you want? What would you like to work on? You know, whatever your question is, that question is the way in which you set the tone for the work that you do together. Now, so in looking at presuppositions, this opening question can be one to really pay attention to and optimize, because the presuppositions that you lay down there are the foundation for your work. Now, in addition, we're going to have a metaphor or a frame that, let's say that when you're working with someone, you start out with a whole stack of dollar bills. Now, each time you open your mouth and say a word, you have to pay $1. So, so you want to end up with as many dollar bills left as possible, right? So what we want to do is find out how can we optimize every word we speak so that we have the most effectiveness from the words that we're using with our clients. Okay, so let's look at a few possible opening questions and just discover what is presupposed with each word of this. First example, how can I help make your experience a little better today? How can I help make your experience a little better today? So, what is presupposed by this question? Okay, so it is presupposed that you can help. You have the ability. Your experience can be better. Okay, so now let me clarify that a little bit. How can I help make your experience? So the word help includes the possibility that the other person is also going to be helping too. However, when it gets to make your experience, it's like something acts upon your experience to change it, right? It's as though there's an external force acting upon that experience. So for me, it doesn't out and out presuppose that I have to do it, but it's implied, I would say. It's implied that I'm the one who's doing it. I wouldn't quite call that a presupposition. So how can I help? The word help means that the other person can also be a part of it. Can participate. But their participation is not presupposed as strongly as it would be if we said, how can we work together, or something along those lines, right? So it's not, the other person's participation is not strongly presupposed. Okay, how can I help make your experience? What does that word make presuppose? What's that?
It's a creative process. You can make it, you can change it.
Okay, it can be changed. Anything else that you get from that word make?
It's like an offer. It's sorry, I'm thinking of how can I? Yeah, I was thinking of what Diane said about create. How can I create something for you which is supports something?
Now, how is this different from make your experience better? How is this different from allow your experience to improve? How is the word make different from the word allow in terms of what it presupposes? So there's a force acting on the experience that kind of forces it to change, right? How can I make it different? Okay, so what's presupposed there?
That you're having an experience.
That's the other person's experience that's important, as opposed to how can I improve your spouse's experience of you, or something like that. So it's the client's experience is important.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's presupposed with the word experience? I could have said, how can I help change your behavior? Or how could I help you feel better? What does the word experience presuppose?
Perception of the world.
Okay. There's a perception of the world element.
It comes and go. It's nothing of permanent.
Your experience, as opposed to changing your something concrete like your finances. It's your subjective experience that we're going to be dealing with. Subjective, which kind of ties into that. It involves perception. It's a subjective thing, and it's also rather broad. In other words, it doesn't presuppose a specific modality. You know, it could be any kind of experience. So, any kind.
It's almost, to me, it's almost inviting the client to define what that is, because it's subject, and because it's a nominalization.
Yeah, a client might answer this question by defining that. It seems that it'd be hard to answer this question without giving some definition of that. Okay, so, and that comes in the category, by the way, of what information do we expect to get back? So that's not so much presupposed in the question as what do we expect in return when we ask this? By the way, I'll just turn the page here. Oh, no, just leave that like it is. Okay, a little. What's presupposed there?
So it changes when
What's that?
there's a spectrum of changes being made, and we're experiencing a little bit.
Okay, so a spectrum is possible. And we'll do a small amount. Okay. And better. What's presupposed with better? It does presuppose that your experience can get better, right? Anything else?
Well, it's not as good as it can get right now.
It's not yet as good as it can get.
So that we don't give them too much expectation? Is it that implying in this
So,
sentence?
yeah, let's come back to this one a little. We'll do a small amount, so we're not expecting to have an enormous change today when we start out with this question, are we? Now, does the word better have a different presupposition than if we said a little different today? So it's an improvement. It's an improvement, okay? And what else is different about it? In terms of digital or analog, what's presupposed? Yeah, different would be digital, and a little better is analog. So we're not talking about, a drastic digital change. We're talking about improving something that is already there. And when will the change happen? Today. Okay. Okay, so there's a lot packed into one little sentence, isn't there? How about this one? What's a significant change you'd like to have as a result of our work today? What's a significant change you'd like to have as a result of our work today? So let's go through this one. What's presupposed here? Let's do it word by word. What does the word what presuppose? Suppose we could have started with how. We started with what? So yeah, there's something in particular. Something, yes. Something as opposed to some process. Something in particular. And that's the information we expect to get back is some kind of nominalization. So what is a significant change?
Singular.
Right, there will be one change.
Something of importance, I would say.
It'll be something of importance, yes. And how about the word change? Yes, this one is digital. So it's changing as opposed to just, okay, we're going to improve it a little bit. We're going to make it a little better. It's going to change. It's a different presupposition. What's a significant change you'd like?
Focus on the person.
So yeah, the client gets to decide what they want, presupposed.
Or it's going to happen to the client.
Well, we're asking what would the client like?
But, I mean, just the word you.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? As opposed to
Yeah.
what you like.
Okay, right. The client will be the one who experiences the change.
That's right.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. How about, and this is a contraction here, but the verb thing here, would like. What does this presuppose as opposed to you want? It's a possibility. So which is different than you want, is more, tends to presuppose that it's still a possibility, but it tends to presuppose more association, as opposed to would like is more hypothetical. It presupposes that this is a hypothetical thing we're asking about here. To have, significant change you would like to have. What's presupposed there? Ownership. And again, this reinforces the thing aspect of it. As a result, we'll do, rather than as and then a, we'll do as a result all together. We'll be daring here. There's a cause effect, yes. As a result of our work, so of our, yeah, this time we're presupposing strongly that we're working together. Of our work. What's presupposed there? An action of some kind. Action.
And some responsibility, like you
Yeah,
get
this
to.
is-
Some
this is-
digging in, I think.
Yeah, this is serious. This
Yeah.
isn't play.
Yes, we didn't say of our just fiddling around here today. So work presupposes, there's a purpose to it. We're wanting to accomplish something. All of that is presupposed with the word work. Work does not, unfortunately, presuppose in and of itself a lot of fun in the process. But it does presuppose that this is serious and we're taking some action here. Today. So again, this is when it's happening. Okay, so now having looked at those two questions, I imagine there are aspects of either question that, or at least when I look at them, there are aspects of both questions that I like and aspects of both that I don't like as much. And in what context, personally, I tend to like this one better than the other one in general. In what context, though, would this question be a more appropriate one to ask? Or something like this, not necessarily this exact question. In what way is this useful in a sense that the next one is not?
Somebody's had generally, or they've had some bad experience, and they're feeling
Business?
very unresourceful, and they seem like they need support.
Okay.
Something that's probably
Gently.
been an issue
So-
that you can change just slowly.
Okay, so a couple of possibilities there. Somebody tends to be generally unresourceful, or at this point in time they are, and it might be a better pace for their experience to talk about making a little change, as opposed to how can we dramatically transform everything about your life in the next 2 seconds. So yeah, it's a better pace for somebody who's not terribly resourceful. And in addition, if somebody has a really big issue and tends to kind of get lost in the bigness of it all, then going for something small can be a useful way of chunking it down as well. So yes.
I tend to ask something a lot like this in just in internal dialogue
Mm-hmm.
when I'm out interacting with normal people.
Uh-huh.
Like I walk up to somebody and I ask this inside my head, how can I make your life a little better today, or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then try to answer that
Mhm.
through my actions.
Yeah. So just out in the world, not in a therapy context, something along these lines can again be a better pace for people who might be put off by the idea of a huge transformation occurring just because somebody walked by and started talking to them. Yes.
Or somebody's done a big piece of work the week before,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we just rest a little bit. We're just gonna do a little bit today.
Great.
And try to take on another big chunk of
Big
that.
issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there are contexts where this sentence is more appropriate than this sentence. And at the same time, if you're really wanting to go for it, obviously this sentence packs more useful presuppositions in to support that outcome than the first one did, doesn't it? Okay, so now we get to a blank page. So who would like to be up here with me with this stack of dollar bills next to you and discover how to refine your language skills even more? And by the way, we're going to do the blurting it out method. You don't need to compose your question ahead of time. We're going to go through and I'll work with you to assist you in kind of some background information gathering even before we come up with the question. So don't need to already have it. While you're thinking about whether this could be you, I also need somebody else to be person A, I think is the letter's going to be. Person A needs to have some area in which you want change that's true for you, that you would be willing to play with and have no expectation whatsoever of getting a change because we're just going to be playing with it. So it needs to be totally fine with you to play with it and not get to the outcome instantly at least. And maybe not at all in the exercise.
I'll play it. No one else wants to.
Okay?
If someone else doesn't, bye.
All right. It's a deal. And we need one more then. Somebody with an issue that's not terribly heavyweight or anything. You got something, and don't tell us what it is.
All right.
Okay? Great. Now it's time to flip the page. But not to this one. To this one. Okay, Meta Model 3 exercise. So the first thing we're going to do is set the context, and I would like to suggest that in your exercise for the first round at least, to have the context be personal change work or therapy. Then if you would like to, on your other rounds, explore other contexts such as business consultation or teacher and student or some other interaction in which it's appropriate for you to be an agent of change, then that's totally fine with me as well. Okay, so how about if we just say this is change work context?
Okay.
Agreeable?
Sure.
Great, okay. So now person A, what you get to do is you get to spend a lot of time not talking during this exercise. So,
I think we should have a.
It's so easy for
Yeah.
you to do.
yes, I know, you're so reticent, I've noticed. So, so what you get to do is think of an area in which you want change. If you were doing this in a group, you would even be jotting down a brief description of your experience of it. For this demonstration, you can just kind of notice your internal representations so that later you'll be able to report any way in which they changed. And good, so if we were doing this exercise, you would also be leaving our group so that you don't hear our conversation and probably joining another group or taking a break or whatever you found to be most useful. Okay, so now while Jim is off, so you can kind of step back there, pretend like you're no longer here, but stay around and listen. So now Ron and I get to collaborate here. So the first thing, I'm going to be the meta person first, so I get to ask you, Ron, in your opening question, what is the information that you want to elicit from Jim?
Where he wants to go.
Where he wants to go. Okay, so I'm going to just make a note of that. You want where he wants to go. Now, what direction would you like to assist Jim in moving in at the same time? So in other words, what I mean by this is, do you want to move him in the direction of expecting a fast change or expecting to enjoy the change process or in a direction of appreciating his resources? Or we can't do it all in one sentence, all the possible beneficial directions in one sentence.
But
But
enjoying the journey as well. Like I think that's,
okay,
enjoying
the journey. Excellent. Okay. Now, having said that that's what we want to get the information of where he wants to go, the direction of enjoying the journey. Now, what would be an opening question that you would like to propose to accomplish this? And for this, again, the most useful approach to take, I think, is to just blurt it out. We can always go back and scratch stuff out and change it if you decide you want to edit it later. So, what would you like to
let's
ask?
see here. First thing that came to mind was, how can I help you have fun going where you would like to go today?
I help you have fun going, and then what's after going?
Where you'd like to go today?
Where you'd like to go today. Great. So now we've got a question. So now let's discover what all is presupposed in this question, just like we've been doing. And for purposes of this demonstration, all of you are combined in person letter C, along with me and Ron. So what else presupposed? How? The process. Can.
Possibility.
Possibility. So I am capable of helping you, blah, blah, blah. I. So Ron is the one who is assisting. Ron is the one who is assisting here. How can I help? And just look at what's around it too. I help you. So what does help presuppose in the context of I help you? Okay, yeah. So yeah, back on can, Ron is capable. Ron is capable of assisting. Now, back to I help you. What does the help in the middle of that phrase presuppose?
There would be change.
So does it presuppose somebody's going it alone or? Yeah, exactly. We're working together on it. How can I help you? So you presupposes that Jim is also involved, right? I'm going to just add this on here. Jim involved. What else does the word you presuppose?
I think it also says that it's your deal. That I'm here to help, that it's your issue.
How can I help you have fun going where you'd like to go today? You know, if you take this you also in the context of the longer sentence, I would agree that it presupposes that Jim is the one who, maybe it doesn't out and out presuppose it, but it certainly implies that Jim is the one who's important here, that his experience is what's relevant. Yes. Yeah, so in fact, yeah, I think it is presupposed. Your experience is the important thing. Okay. As opposed to, how can I help you be the way that I think you should be? So, how can I help you have fun? Obviously, presupposes it's going to be enjoyable. Going. Now, what does? Yeah, again, it's a process. It reinforces this presupposition. What else does it presuppose? It moves, going where you'd like to go. Yeah, I would say it's more analog, as opposed to jumping into a new experience. You know, going is an analog method. What else does it? Movement, yes. Notice that Ron's language is full of words that presuppose movement and, you know, moving from spatially. Spatial movement is presupposed here. Where, again, that presupposes spatial movement again, doesn't it? Anything else for where?
Location.
Location. So there's a destination that we're going for, which is an important location here. Okay, where you, again, would like.
You get to choose.
Yes, you get to choose. I'm going to add this to this one. Your experience is important. You get to choose. Now, would like, does that presuppose it's going to happen for sure? No. It presupposes that it's a possibility. Again, so the possibility.
And it sort of reinforces fun. I mean, you like it, you're going to like it. It sort of reinforces that fun part.
It does reinforce that fun. It's something you would like, you would enjoy. Where you would like to go. Again, movement, going from one location to another. Today. That's when it'll happen. It'll happen today. Okay, excellent. Now, did you have any idea there was so much packed in there? Okay. Now, we've got the presuppositions in the question. The next thing we need to identify is, Ron, in addition to what's out and out presupposed in the words there, are there other things that are presupposed in your own mind? In other words, assumptions that you have about the work you're going to be doing with Jim that are not included here?
Assumptions. One of the assumptions would be one of the presuppositions of NLP, which is he has already the resources that he needs to accomplish his goal.
He has the resources
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Great. What else do you assume in your own mind, presuppose, that is true? Even before you have started the conversation, what do you assume is the case?
Well, he's funny. I know that to be the case. I know him personally.
He's funny. Okay, great. Now, the next thing we're going to find out is when you ask this question, now that we've done the question, what specific information do you expect to get back in response? In other words, do you expect that this question is going to elicit information about the outcome or the problem, about, you know, this kind of information or that?
This is more of a process than it is actually looking for a particular outcome. I don't know.
So the literal meaning of the question is, what process are we going to be doing,
Yeah.
right? How can I help you? At the same time, if you ask him this question, do you expect to get him back saying, well, I want you to do NLP with me?
No.
No. So you don't really expect him to answer the question in a literal manner. So what information do you think he will be giving you as a result?
Body language, I think.
Okay, you'll get body language about what?
Well, the first thing that I think that I'll get is whether he accepts the question.
Okay.
Well, that's the first thing that I'll probably elicit.
Body language. Does he accept the question?
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. And what else do you think you will get back? In terms of his verbal response, what kind of language response do you think you'll get?
Well, he'll probably tell me how. That's
Okay.
what I would assume.
So tell you how or tell you his outcome? What?
I think he'd probably give me some instructions maybe as to how we can actually get to accomplish his goal. I don't think
Okay.
that we're going to get an actual outcome.
So instructions on how. Okay. And then what direction do you expect this question, or do you want this question to lead his experience in?
I mean, in regards to direction, I want it to be open. I don't want it to be necessarily, I want to have options. I don't want to just have one narrow direction. So I'm looking more of an array as opposed to, one
Okay.
particular path.
So you would expect this question to elicit a sense of options, a sense
Yeah.
of, okay, rather than directing him down one particular course.
Narrow path.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And I would agree, looking at this question, it's if I were receiving this question, I would have a sense of options and possibilities as far as which way we're going to go. Okay, so now, having done all of this, we get to bring Jim in.
How are you, Jim? I feel a little analyzed, but that's okay.
So Ron gets to actually ask the question now. After a little bit of rapport is fine.
Well, how can I help you have fun going where you want to go today?
Now Jim gets to notice, how does this shift his representations of this area in which he wants change? And also he gets to come up with a verbal response, a verbal answer to Ron's question.
I didn't realize it, but I guess I do want to have some fun today.
Excellent.
Okay. So now that's all you get to say, Jim, so you can go away now. So we're going to write down his language. So I didn't realize it, but I guess I do want to have some fun today. Okay, so what's presupposed here? Well, all together is fine. We'll go all together and then also look at the pieces too.
Acceptance of the suggestion.
He accepted the fun, and he accepted the today. He also carried forward the presuppositions that he's the one who gets to want something. Okay.
It's open to possibilities, like I didn't realize.
Mhm.
Sort of like, it's like, rather than say, but I just want this, he's actually sort of opened up. I didn't realize that. He's sort of kind of letting you know, well, I'm willing to consider things today. I didn't realize one thing, and we just started.
So yeah, so he's presupposed that he's already changed something. So he's already changed his perceptions. I would say that the openness, I don't know that it's out and out presupposed, but that's the sense I have. I share that sense with you of that's kind of the meaning that I get of it too. But I wouldn't see where it's out and out presupposed by the language, but changed already. Okay. Now, I guess I want to have some fun. So it doesn't sound totally certain, like it has to be that we have fun. So so in that sense, it is openness. Yeah. So guess presupposes, but it's not totally set in concrete. It's not totally fixed. It's more, you could use the word open. I'll go ahead and put that down. All right. Now, after doing this, Ron and I get to switch. I get to put up a question, and we examine all the what is the information that I want? What presuppositions or what direction do I want to take Jim in? What are the presuppositions in the question? Blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, I want to make sure you guys have time to do your exercises. So what I'd be inclined, just so you know, if I were coming up with a question next, what I would want to do is, I noticed that from the first question, we didn't get specific information about his outcome. And so I would want to be even more pinpointed as far as asking for that information with this next one. And in terms of what direction, I would want to continue Ron's direction of fun and maybe an additional direction of he already has the resources. Since Ron mentioned that he presupposes that in his own mind, and I like that, like I could add that in this time to my question. Because like I say, you can't add everything into every question. There's just, you would have the whole page with one question. So I'm going to say, when we will have enjoyably worked together to create a desirable change for you, specifically, what will be different about your experience? Okay, so that's going to be my next question. So again, we would need to examine this for presuppositions first, and then bring Jim back, and I get to just continue the process that way. Now, in your groups, if you work really efficiently, and having done this and kind of muddled through it a couple of times, it starts getting more streamlined as you go along and a little bit quicker to examine the presuppositions. One key is don't take too long coming up with your question, because the more time you spend coming up with your question, the less time you have for looking at the presuppositions in it. So just blurt something out. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to learn whatever's there. And then optimally, you'll have a chance to ask 3 questions in your round. So there's, that's why we want to optimize every word here. Now, after we've done this as much as we have time for, then in the last couple minutes, we can bring Jim back and ask him for feedback as well. So we get to compare notes between us and Jim and what was useful and what was not useful. Because Jim doesn't get to give us feedback along the way. All he gets to do is answer our questions. That's all he gets to do. And so that's why we want to make our questions so that the question alone is going to elicit the information that we need at the moment to work with, as well as moving him in a useful direction. Okay? All right, so this is again in your notes, and it's on page, oh, thanks, you guys can have a seat then. Thank you. On page 20, and so set the context very quickly. Person A, leave the group. Think of an area you want for change. Notice your representation. Jot down a description of it. Person C, find out from B, what information do you want to gather? In what direction do you want to lead A? Having observed us set up this particular demonstration, you might already know how you would answer those questions. You might already have an idea what information you want and what direction you want to go in. So that can happen really quickly for you. Then person B will put a question down on paper to ask A. And we're going to both identify then, B and C, identify together the presuppositions in the question. What else do you presuppose in your mind? What are you assuming that's not in the words of the question? What information do you expect to get back? And in what direction will this question lead the person? Person B asks the question, writes down the response, and do the presuppositions there. Person A, of course, goes off again. And then we switch roles and do it again. Now, as you go along, at some point it's good to get some, generally speaking, the first question, we really need, if possible, to get some information is our goal. And by the time we get to the third question, it's quite possible that by this point, our main goal can be that we want the direction in which we want to send the person. So by this time, we might be ready to presuppose that the person has already changed or is in the process of changing or something along those lines. So really go for the outcome on question 3. And question 2 is kind of in the middle ground. So, do any additional information gathering that you need to do after question 1 and continue moving in the direction as well. So, just see what you can cause to happen in 3 questions together.
All this time, A doesn't give us any information, they just notice their response.
Oh, well, they answer the question. That's the only verbal information they give. So when you ask the question, just to hear when Ron asked Jim the question, Jim said, Jim said, I didn't realize it, but I guess I do want to have some fun today. That was his response. So, and depending on what your question is and who you're asking it to, that could be just about anything. All right, so go for it in groups of 3. And I'll figure out how much time there is per round, but basically it's going to be roughly 30 minutes per person. What I'd like to do, if this is acceptable to you, is rather than taking an official break, take a break when you're person A. You're going to have plenty of time on your hands to go to the bathroom, stretch, walk around, etc. So you will have that option for break during the exercise itself. And so let's go for it.